We find that this is a great opportunity to listen to what the citizens here in Buncombe County think, feel, and how they would like the new regime, if you will, of Buncombe County leadership, as well as in the State House with Paul Perdue, to serve them in the future. We're taking this race very serious, and as you know, the Democratic National Convention is taking place this week. I've been on 2 radio interviews today, one with Matt Matan and another one out of Charlotte, and it's really amazing of what's happening throughout our nation right now, but in particular, I keep emphasizing Buncombe County and the importance of what's happening here in North Carolina. And I do want to say this one thing, that we as Republicans have not led the legislator in Raleigh, nor have we led the leadership here as a dominant party in Buncombe County. We need to make some changes. You know, the Democrats think they have a patent, and I don't know if there's any Democrats here, but I'm going to say it the way I feel. Think they have a roll-up as it relates down to this word called change. What we advocate is positive change starts at the local level. And the lowest denominator that's on the ballot this year is county commissioners. So once again, we want to thank you, appreciate you, ask the hard questions, make the statements that you feel you need to make. Friend or foe, I think it's important for each one of these candidates to hear your perspective, your concerns, pluses and minuses. And again, it makes no difference if you're for a particular person, but ask all the candidates. We want to get all our candidates elected this fall. So without further ado, let me take the opportunity to introduce Don Yellen, who's running for County Commissioner, Mike Fryer, running for County Commissioner, Nathan Ramsey, who's running for re-election as the chairman of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, Paul Perdue, who's running for House District 115, which we're right now, John Carroll, who's running for County Commissioner, and Ron McKee. So this time, does somebody have an opening question?
I just recently went to Raleigh, and some of the people here in this room went there also, and it's Take Back Our State. And I think Tim's right. You need to take back Buncombe County first, because it's the roots. Everything goes right. The power comes from the people. If we can restore the power to the people, we can win at the national level and the international level, in fact, the case be. Now, what I'd like to do is, I'd like to ask Don Yelton a question. This has been bugging me since we talked. You have 4 inches of rain on Butler Mountain. Is it like an avalanche? Or where does the water go? You brought this up the other day about the 4 inches of rain that we just had. And this has to do with development. And this has to do with taxation. We're building all over these mountains here. What does that cost?
Well, I made a statement in answering the Asheville Citizen Times, and I made a statement that all of our taxation policies and most of our zoning rules and regulations absolutely push development out into the county and on the mountains, and does not reward proper and wise development of the steep slopes. We've got a deficit of what, about 10 inches? So I asked the question last night on the TV show, did the 4 inches get us from a severe drought to the drought level? I've not seen any comments on that. When the rain hits the ground, based upon the type of soil, it will run off, or it will soak in. But one of the things that really holds moisture is timber. And those of you that walk through the woods know you can walk through the woods in a mild rain and not get wet, except big drops working through the trees. So it holds a lot of moisture, lets the moisture soak into the plant and actually stays there. So when you cut trees, you do increase the runoff. When you put down asphalt, you increase the runoff. When you grade in the side of a mountain and create a flat place to build a house and have a 20-foot slope behind your house, those of you that ever built a house like that know what happens. What happens behind your house? The water runs off right into next to your house. There are techniques that we could use that would keep that water on the ground and let it soak in and recharge the groundwater. But it doesn't make any difference what you do. There is a carrying capacity, C-A-R-R-Y-I-N-G. And any farmer knows you can't put 1,000 head of cattle on an acre of ground, because if you do, what do you get? No grass and a lot of cow manure. So our policies that we establish as a county commissioner can have a direct impact on that. And frankly, I think most of our policies are based toward taxation and creating revenue for the government, and not wise development. And I hope that answers your question, because I think you can do it by applying some sound principles.
It's okay. We're going to bite.
All right, let's talk taxes. Let's talk taxes. Our property values, John knows this, John Carroll knows the property values have gone down. I've been trying to sell my house. Last year would have been better this year. What are y'all going to do about lowering taxes? Should we lower taxes based on our values this year, or are we stagnant for the next 4 years, John?
Well, this is something I've been talking a lot about, and I feel very committed to the people who are having a hard time in our county right now with their budgets. And we all know that we're probably going into a period of time where our economy could get a lot worse than it is now. There's nothing that says good times are ahead. So we're going to have to become a lot better stewards of our taxpayers' money in 2009 and the years ahead. And to say exactly what that is going to be, I don't think anyone knows precisely what it is. And if you did, you'd probably be wearing a right robe and living on a mountain. And I don't do either one of those, so that doesn't qualify me as a clairvoyant. However, I can tell you that being in the real estate business in this town, I talk to a lot of people who are having a hard time making their home house payments and being able to figure out how to balance their budget. So it's going to be incumbent upon the commissioners to be very, very much diligent about looking at the tax rate, how much they spend. All those things are going to have to be things we're going to have to look at in the coming budget. But to say exactly what that number is going to be, all I can do is pledge to you. I'm going to do everything just like Don's talked about, reduce waste in our government, and come up with a tax rate that will provide us the services that we need to have in our county.
I would like to evaluate the idea that vacant land have their taxes frozen immediately, because vacant land doesn't have kids to go to school. Vacant land doesn't put cars on the road. Vacant land doesn't demand anything unless you have a brush fire. Now, what does vacant land do? That rain you talked about a minute ago, vacant land lets it soak up the rain, doesn't it? Vacant land gives us a pretty view, which makes people want to live here, which makes the other lands go valuable. So in reality, vacant land is serving a purpose for all of us. So I think we need to look at freezing taxes on vacant land with an ultimate goal of of zero taxes on vacant land. I think that will keep people from having to sell their property. I had a lady call my show last night, said man said he had to sell off an acre to pay his taxes. The next door neighbor of mine on Jupiter Road is having to sell an acre next to her house because, and I stopped and asked her, and she said, well, you run out of money before you die. And I think that's an atrocity when we, as people, demand enough services of the government that we're actually forcing people to sell off their property to pay their property taxes. And I think it is a serious problem, and we're just beginning to feel it in Buncombe County. And as the economy gets worse, it's going to be felt even more. And the problem is, land is not selling right now for what it used to sell for. So when they do sell it, they're still not paying their taxes maybe but 1 year. And is that worth fighting for? That's a question you all have to answer. Is that worth you getting out and asking these questions of all the people that's running for office and seeing the ones that are telling you, I'm going to give you more health care, I'm going to give you more education, I'm going to give you more of this and more of that? I ask you the question, what does more of this cost? And when is the last time has Buncombe County government generated revenue? Last time I checked, they can't generate it. It has to come from you.
And Don raises a good point because you hear those folks that talk about helping those in need, and we certainly need to try to help those in need. But a prime example of that, there was a person that's living in Fairview, grew up, I went to school with his daughter, lived out here for a very long time, elderly gentleman. He was on the front page of the Asheville Citizen-Times newspaper. They were talking about his difficulty in paying taxes. And because he didn't own 10 acres that would qualify him for reduced value for farmland, in the county, number one, they'd overvalued his property. But he was living on a very limited fixed income. And so it was, causing great personal financial stress to him. So, Don's certainly right. There are people all over this county that are struggling. John mentioned it. There are people that we have twice as many people that qualify for that elderly disabled tax reduction program that the state passed as any other county in the state, and that includes counties that are 3 times our population. So, in these tough times, we need to have some compassion for those folks as well, because what's going to happen if they had to sell their place and they ran out of money, then the government puts them in a nursing facility that costs $4,000, $5,000 a month. So as a taxpayer, you're having to spend $60,000 a year to support someone, whereas if they could stay in their home, it's not costing you hardly anything to keep them in your home. So, I think that's where government policies have been messed up.
Well, that goes back to another thing for you.
Yes, sir.
I live in the area, and Mr. Fleming sitting over in the corner, when they had the last evaluation, they took about everything that's on 74 and turned it commercial. So all his taxes on all his property, he has some commercial, but he has a house on one, but they kind of doubled his taxes from what he was telling me. Everybody talks about all this development. Well, it all falls back into the people having to sell their land. They have to sell their land because they can't afford the taxes. And the people that buy the land are going to develop it because they're not going to sit there and just pay taxes on it. So the county ends up with more revenue from the property when they build these houses. The steep slope, like Doug was talking, I live in Winsong up here. If you do it right, I don't think they ought to be clusters. Most of the lots in my development are a little over an acre, and it seems to work out good. Mother Nature, after a little while, picks up and takes care of with the trees and stuff coming back. But rain runoff, we had trouble out areas before with the lake at Winsong. But I want the people's taxes to be lower. I went in and talked to Wanda Green, and I looked her when I was just running in the primary, in which they put me back in this race. And I appreciate it from the Republicans and all. But I went in and spoke to her, and I asked her, I said, ma'am, I said, you got a reevaluation? And I said, my property tax is skyrocketing. I said, that's why I'm running. Because something's not right. Here you've got an influx of money that's unreal. you do? You didn't take it before the board and ask them to come down on the taxes. You kept it. You figured out a place to put it. Well, now we're starting to get into hard times, and when we have another reevaluation, when my property goes down, are you going to cut stuff out of the budget in the county? Well, I don't know. And I said, well, what you're saying to me, ma'am, is you want to keep what you got, so that means you're going to come before me if I get in and say, well, we need to go from 52 cents to 54 cents. So that means we pay more taxes on property that's worth less. That's not right. I'm sorry. I brought a question to her. I got a friend that used to own the sales bleacher. All that 110 acres. Well, everybody thought they didn't want it done. When I was talking to him, I asked him, I said, how much tax did you pay on that property, that 110 acres? He said, well, the biggest check that I wrote was $28,000. But he sold half of the property, 60 acres basically. So he only paid $13,500 on half the property. Once they got the Walmart built and the 2 other stores built, the gentleman from Horn Development that built them brought in the tax bill in. Anybody have an idea what they think it would be?
$2 million.
$1.2 million. Half of the land went up that much. So you look at all the buildings, Office Max, all the constructions, the theaters. I was in racing, and you know, they get all this money. When you're in racing and you watch TV on Sunday, and all these cars got these sponsors on the side. It's real simple. They got sponsors. You go to the sponsor and you say, well, I want $10 million for a year. Okay. Well, 3/4 of the way into the year, or almost at the end of the year with the purses and stuff, if they've done good, they still got $1 million left. So what happens is they go spend this $1 million, they buy things for next year. They get it into their budget. That way they can go back and ask the sponsor for another $1 million. Our county does the same thing. I want to look at it physically. I want to see where the money goes. I want to see how many things. I'm a person of math. I'm not a person of education. And I have been in business, you know, for 28 years. Not the best business person I've ever been, but I understand a lot of things about it. And the people in here is the ones that deserve it. There's people in West Asheville live in the city, their taxes are double, that have retired, but they're working at Walmart and places just to pay their supplemental insurance. And that is totally, totally ridiculous. We have to cut things somehow or another. I might not be the genius, but I will work to try to get a reduction in people's taxes.
Another thing I like, I don't care who answers it, either one of you, I like the point. As middle class or low class, when these big developers comes in, and they got the $100,000 or $200,000, and we got just a modern home, and they appraise our property, and our house goes up to $115,000 or million, whatever you call it. What do we do to meet our tax? Because theirs is up on that level, they got to bring ours up on that level. We know it's not worth all that. How do we meet the taxes that we have to pay to meet the development that they're weighing up under now? How do they rate that like that to make ours worth that much?
Well, there's a way that you can appeal that, you know, that tax rate, and but you're right. Unfortunately, people want to live here, and it's supply and demand. I always thought that there should be a person sitting there with a checkbook. If anybody don't like what their house is valued at, they write them a check for it. You know, if they take it, you know, fine. But there is an appeal process. What everybody talks about, controlling, you know, and lowering taxes and everything, they hit on it a little bit, but it's a two-way street. You know, you should only tax for what you need to spend, and controlling the spending and getting a handle on that is as much of the answer or more of the answer than just cutting the taxes and then spending that much money. We do have basic needs that we have to furnish and we need to furnish. But making the decisions on the gray areas, and sometimes it's going to be tough decisions. You know, I'm sure all the candidates here and all the Democrats get all these questionnaires, and everybody's kind of want to know what you're going to do for me and do for there. And I told one lady that was wanting some funding for one project, I'm more interested in how we're going to buy fuel for these school buses to get their kids to school next year than those things. John was talking about, we don't know what problems are going to come up, so you need to talk to the candidates, all of them on both sides, and you need to, I would think you'd want to elect somebody that has been in business and understands the problems and has some common sense approach. Just be careful, people promise you everything. You know, you can find those on 11 o'clock late night TV selling you snake oil.
Well, it goes to a wider issue. The problem is not taxation, the problem is spending. That's where the problem is. You know, when the government, be it local or state, has this credit card with no limit on it. And the people keep having to shell out and do these payments every year, like the state budget at the moment is 21 billion. That's what it be. And like Buncombe County, I keep saying to people, where is the $317 million going to? What is going on? My property was revalued up, and then I had to fight it. I was told not to fight it and had to revalue it down again. They still got an extra $900 off me somewhere. Suddenly I had no chimney on my building, so they had to take it back down again. But the thing is that people are threatened, people are afraid. You know, when you go to a government department, be it state or county, remember, these people work for you. You don't work for them. And I think what has happened over the last couple of years is that people are afraid to stand up and fight for what is there. The power is in the people, not in government. And, you know, one of the things, like Don had a very good suggestion, I sort of pinched it and put it onto my website, I hope you didn't mind, on the vacant and unused land. And I think that can be strengthened. If it comes from the county, it can be strengthened in the state. And it give it more weight and more power if the state representative can fight for that.
Did anybody else want to answer that question or address that question?
Well, I think the challenge there is we really can't control the values, and certainly when you have these high dollar houses come in, Fairview's been especially, used to. Fairview was country, and when I was going to rentals, not to criticize the folks from East Asheville, but my good friends in Bell and Hall Creek, they thought the folks from Oakley and Fairview, we were a bunch of rednecks. I guess still am, but Fairview certainly changed, and there's these high dollar houses, and when somebody builds a real nice house next to you, your value goes up. But Paul is correct. It is based on spending. Number one, you need to try to appeal that value and make sure that value is correct. I think many of the tax staff, they do a good job, but you need to be insistent on that. And that's one thing. Whoever's on the Board of Commissioners, they need to be responsive, and you need to call them and say, I don't think they're appraising my property fairly, and you need to look into that. So I would encourage you to do that. But most importantly, you need to have people on the Board of Commissioners. And I'm not saying this in a partisan sense, but you need to have people on the Board of Commissioners that really understand the struggles that ordinary people are going through. And I think at some point in time, there's some people up there, just based on their previous voting record, that they don't have that same connection. Today we had a forum with my opponent, and back when we were having tough economic times, thank goodness the majority of the Democrats disagreed with him, but he wanted to raise taxes even more than what the county raised them. And he wasn't willing to even admit the county's raised taxes. He claims he's cut taxes. And I personally can't go out to anybody in the county and say, your taxes were cut, because it's completely patently false. But if you elect people up there that understand those challenges, sure, they're going to try to fund schools and the other things the county has to do and prioritize, like Ron was saying. You got to put the fuel in the school buses and the sheriff's cars before you can do some of those extraneous things. But if you don't elect people up there that have that sensitivity, that we're going to face a lot of problems.
Yeah, I live in Avery's Creek, and just close to us, they put in the Cliffs, which is about 1,100 acres of homes that, well, the lot sold from $750,000 to $1.2 million for an acre lot. all I can say is, that's a lot. But, and much less the homes they put on it and everything, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'd like to speak directly to that question.
Sorry. I just wanted to say one thing. One of the things that would be probably very proactive to do would be try and bring in either extend the Homestead Act, bring it in where people that, if you purchase a home like they do in Florida, where you purchase a home, you pay the property tax as is of that time, and that is what you pay until you sell it again. And I think that would be very good. That would help, you know, people that want to spend your money where they won't spend their own. They would have to be more responsible for that.
Well, thank you, Paul, for bringing that up, because that was what I wanted to add to that question, because I wanted to speak specific to that. And I want to speak specific to the fact that if you have a certain amount of income, you can get it reduced by half, right, Nathan?
Right.
But there again is how our laws are structured. You know, it's what, 25,000, Nathan? What is it?
It's 25.
If you make less, it's been raised, if
Right.
you make less than 25,000 a year, you can get your taxes reduced at a certain limit. But
That's only for primary residents, though.
that's only for primary residents. And guess what? What if you make $25,001? You don't get any deduction. So we constructed the laws in such a way that they're unfair. They should be graduated and not have a drop-off point. And that comes back to what I said about thinking outside the box, getting away from traditional ideas and thinking of something different. And what Nathan said about the 10 acres. You can't put it in farmland preservation if you don't have 10 acres. Well, guess what? If you've got 5 acres sitting there in a house, that 4 acres undeveloped is just as green and just as pretty. And if you had 2 of those, that's the same thing as 10 acres undeveloped, isn't it? So these are the type of things that takes creative leadership. It takes thinking outside the box. It takes going to Raleigh, and if Paul's down there kicking him and you know what, and being sure that he gives us the help we need to implement these things. Because the last time I talked to him at the Institute of Governors about taxes, there's a lot of things you can do as long as it's uniform across the board. And yes, you do not get good service at the tax department. I'm sorry, Nathan. I know people that have gone to the tax department up there that have said, I want my property devalued because I live next to a toxic waste dump on Mills Gap Road at the CTS plant. And they were told by the staff, well, everybody knew that thing's contaminated over there. We're not going to lower the value of property. And that has actually happened. So that's why you need a commissioner that's not afraid to get involved in the day-to-day operation of the county department. You got good employees, but you got some of them that are not paid what they should be paid and have a lot more work to do than they should be doing. And they didn't get their last raise like they should. So their attitude may not be the best in the world. And sometimes you've got to step into those situations. It can be messy, but it takes guts to do it. And that's one of the things I think you need to think about as a citizen. What kind of response do you get when you go to your county government?
Some family members that I was raised with, and they're in Middlesboro, Kentucky. Some of them are getting of age now, like 65 and retiring. One retired from the Bell South, another retired from his Pike, the Lake Fork. Once you reach 65 years old, your homestead, your taxes in half, and it don't matter how much money you make.
Well, you know, I look at the candidates here, including Paul, he's not running for county commissioner, but when I service coffee and tea machines through the whole area here, into the valleys, and the arrogance of the 4 other county commissioners, not Nathan, is these people are so mad and frustrated. Like you said, you touched on when you go to the tax department. They won't think outside the box. The arrogance of these people. The example would be zoning. We had a nice meeting up there at AV Tech. 99% of the people were against zoning. They wouldn't even let Nathan reach first base on that. And it's at least these candidates up here will think outside the box and at least pay lip service to us now. These other people won't. You go up to Gant, forget it. You go up to Young. And what about that woman's name? I can't remember her name. Yeah, Carol Ware Peterson, her super delicate husband. You know, I mean, all these people, they're just in another world. And then there's Bill Stanley. I mean, you know, sometimes he's with us, sometimes he's not. They don't think outside the box. One time I asked David Young a question. I asked him about the accelerator effect about taxes. And I said, for every dollar that you take out of the taxpayer's hands, it multiplies by as much as $11 to $15. But when you take it out of our hands, you're not gonna get any more money. Supply side economics works. Lower taxes, their coffers are gonna go up. That's all but the arrogance of these people, they actually all voted out except for Nathan.
Well, but the fact is specifically on two issues, and on the zoning on the district elections, because it was clear because there was a vote on that. In both of those cases, if people thought zoning was the right thing for the county, and the commissioners could go out and convince the majority of the people that the county was growing, here's the kind of regulations we need because of this, and we had a vote, which all of them agreed to do back in 1999, you know, I might disagree with the decision, but at least if a majority of the people in the community, which includes the city of Asheville and our other 5 municipalities, voted for it, at least I would say, you know, they made the convincing case to our citizens. But what has happened is that's not what they've done. They have tried to really divide the community because they played politics and it's sort of been a shell game. And going back to the idea on district elections, they asked me why didn't I bring it up earlier. The reason I didn't bring it up earlier is because I knew you know, they wouldn't support it. But, you know, where each area of the county could have a county commissioner that lived in that particular area. And there could be pros to that, which I think there are. There could even be negatives. But, you know, people can decide and make the right decision. And, you know, they weren't willing even to say, no, I think it's the wrong thing to do, Nathan. My opponent claimed that, you know, I did it in an unfortunate way, but he never gave me a phone call to say, okay, Nathan, you know, I think you're wrong because of these particular reasons. So, you know, that's why, you know, you need 3 county commissioners up there that believe in those particular things, because otherwise, 2 county commissioners cannot get something done. That's the way the process works. It takes 3 to get something done, and that's from Bill Stanley, you know, so he always reminds you about that. But, you know, that's really what this election is all about. And if people in the county feel like that's okay, and they don't really care, they don't want to decide on district elections, they feel like housing prices are okay, you know, the county tax policy is okay, then they'll get what they've got in the past.
But I'd like to ask the group up here, myself in the audience, because one of the questions we get all the time is, what are your top 3 priorities, right, guys? I'd like to ask each citizen here, what are your 3 top priorities that's important to you when you go in that booth and vote?
Well, I like point 1, family values, like your home, like you was grown up with the cow on your farm, with the pig on your farm, the chickens on your farm, the stuff to raise for your family to eat, a garden to raise. That people around here in the new development things, they don't want a cow on your property. They don't want a calf on your property. They don't want chickens running around. They don't want to smell pig manure. And where does
But they want the pork, though, don't
That's
they?
right. You got to raise it for your family, because where's it coming from? It's coming from overseas or somewhere. We don't know where it's coming from. What it's put in our meat that we have. We don't know what it's been. What is their children growing up to be? They don't even know what a cow or a calf, they don't know nothing about it. They don't know where a chicken comes from.
They know money comes off of a tree.
That's right. That's what I want. That's what I want them to tell me. The zoning, these young couples coming up, you can't even have they don't even want a mobile home. What's different with mobile home? That's all we growed up with. Old for fashion living, that's what I think it should be. That's my values. That's what I want. That's what's going to stand. It stood for so many years. Where's your dairies and your things going?
When you go in the voting booth, what are your top priorities? Ken? One thing that I think you will see from any of us that might get elected, you just talking about, you know, not listening to you and everything. I was at the Nathan Ramsey, David Gant debate today, and he was talking about how important he thought it was. He was wondering why this, not why they cut out the listening and all that stuff. And of course, he wanted to know if they go on, and he gave the reason, well, you know, I have a business to run and a time restraint and all that stuff. But I tell you, I think you're going to find that this group, that's one of our commitments, is to listen for the next, when the day after the election starts the 4-year listening tour. And I don't see why we can't do this in each community for the next 4 years. Now, I don't know how, if you can get there twice in a year, or once in a year, or what, to each district. But I think you're going to see that, and invite the other ones to come along and see if they do. You may not have the full board there, but you've got to listen to the people, and I think you're going to find that. And you know, Nathan doesn't get as fired up about this district elections as I do. And I'm not pushing district elections. Like he says, it's got its pluses and its minuses. But the fact that they didn't give the citizens of Buncombe County the right to vote on district elections is a slap in the face. Again, it was kind of brushed over today, and David said that he doesn't favor referendums. So in other words, he wants the voters and all that to talk and take part in government and be active, but for God's sake, don't have a voice that can really make a difference when they have a vote. Whether you're for district elections or not, you should have the right to vote on it, and it be put on the ballot, and then you can fight among it whether you want it or not.
You know, known to man, and we're very blessed to live in a nation that has the freedoms that we do, and not to criticize that. But the problem with political campaigns, 2 months, we're now a little over around 2 months before the election, is you really can't believe what a politician or someone running for office tells you 2 months before an election that they will do. And so, you know, they'll tell you anything, and this is from both parties. It's not a, you know, Republican problem or a Democrat problem. It's a across-the-board problem. And so you really need to look in their history and see how did they vote when the county was having economic hard times. You know, how did they vote on taxes? What was their positions on different things? But, you know, right now, and I hate to say it, I'm an elected official, but I really wouldn't believe, you know, say at the presidential election, what either candidate is telling me now. I'd look back what they did 5 years ago, I think is a better indicator of what than what they're telling you right now, because right now they'll tell you anything they can to get elected.
Well, I appreciate that, Nathan, because I have never been in office before, so I have a hard time.
Well,
getting over
and
that.
none
can't
of
go
us
back
have
5 years.
Nathan, so you have to look at what we've done in the community and what we did in our jobs.
Yeah. Who are you?
You know,
Character.
John Carroll,
I was on the school board 8 years.
yeah, he was on the school board 8 years, but he and my wife Carolyn back here started in real estate 100 years ago. And
A long time ago.
yeah, she was only 7 years old. And John Carroll has been somewhat successful, and it all isn't John Carroll, don't get me wrong, but he's listened to people, and he's got his employees involved, and now that he has employees, but he worked hard and has done the right thing. You know, the same way with most of us is you just look at what we've done in the past.
Quite the contrary, I've been over here since 1988 challenge government showing the stupidity they do.
Yeah.
And I think my record shows that, and I get on TV every week and give the citizens a voice, and that's what I intend to do when I'm a county commissioner.
So you're not going to shut you up then, huh?
But
Well, let me ask a question, because I want to make sure, because you asked an important question for everybody that's in the room, so don't feel restricted to just the front row. What are your top 3 priorities?
Yes.
I think that's an important question.
What was that?
What are your top 3 priorities?
When making a decision.
When making a decision, getting that vote to vote. I mean, what makes you vote for somebody?
What's
What
important
are
to
you looking for that you don't have now?
How
What
about
do you
sir?
need?
What's important to you? Top 3?
Integrity.
I'm sorry.
One thing that's long-term is school dropout. That's a big issue for me, where the kids go, and that's the next generation that's going to follow us. And I think that's a real big issue.
Well, having been a educator in public schools and on the school board, you know, that's a priority for me. I was chairman of the Buncombe County Schools Foundation, so I've spent a lot of my life really dedicated to that, to public education. And I'm a firm believer in public education, by the way. I support it 100%. Your community is going to be judged by how you raise your children. And one of the things that I've always said too is that these children did not ask to be born in this world. and we have a responsibility to take care of it. And if we're going to have a future here in this county, it's going to be based on what those kids, those children in our schools grow up to be, because they are the ones that are going to take care of us someday when we need help. So every child needs an education. Now, I didn't say that everyone needed to go to college. Not everyone needs to go to technical school, but everyone at least needs to get through high school. We have had in the last report in Buncombe County over 500 children dropped out of school from the last school year report. I don't think a lot of people realize how many people 500 people are. That's a lot of students. And that's a lot of people that went out in the community that weren't prepared to go out there. When we look at our prisons, we have over 70% of all prisoners in this country are dropouts. If you look at your welfare rolls, dropouts. There's just a lot of misery that's created that could be avoided by having programs to protect children from dropping out. Now, the reason why I think that the county commissioners is a great place to be to solve that problem is that every one of your problems are local. All problems are local. And what happens is when you don't handle them locally, they get passed on to the state, on to the federal. So we need to handle our problems right here. We need to accept them. But there's a lot of different people, different groups that can handle the school dropout problem. You start out with your ministers and your rabbis and other religious leaders. Those people need to be part of this whole process. We need to have the social service people. We need to have the sheriff's department. We need to have all the people who have a stakeholder's interest in providing services in Buncombe County to our residents be part of this problem. A lot of people want to say it's the school's problem. It's the parents' problem. It's not. It's our problem. And we have to do things that start out at a very young age. And one of the things that I found in high school students, and I'm sorry for this long-winded explanation, but I do have a passion for what I'm talking about.
We just call you Nathan.
Okay. Put an hourglass on that thing. Put there. I guess we can laugh about every 2 or 3 or 4 minutes.
3 minutes, please.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, please.
Can I keep going on?
No.
For a couple more minutes?
3 minutes.
Well, you know what, another thing I would like to do in that, I would like Mark Crawford, who's also running for Buncombe County Board of Education, to address that question, because hopefully in the fall he will get on that and he will have a direct effect on not only what the Board of Commissioners are responsible for as it relates down to money, but also helping to make some of those vital decisions as pertains to that. So, Mark, are you done, John? Because I don't want you to cut off.
I don't think he was done. I want to hear what else he has to say.
Why don't you finish and then turn it over?
Well, I'll just close with what I have to say, and that is that the commissioners are in a great place in the fact that they are the ones that are handing out the money to the schools and a lot of other organizations, which need to be held accountable for that money. I mean, we need to know how they're spending their money. We need to be able to look at how they're spending their money, and we need to have accountability for that money. But they're in a good position, sort of the center of the problem. And I would be glad to spend a lot of my time working on that problem as a member of the Board of County Commissioners, because I think if you could do one thing as a commissioner, that would be a wonderful thing, to be able to reduce the amount of children that drop out. In fact, let's make it so no one drops out. I mean, let's just go for the goal, and let's try to make that our goal. One child dropping out of school is one too many.
Well, thank you. First of all, I had not expected to take this platform to give you a little bit about my background. I did have the honor of serving in the State House of Representatives While I was there, I also served on the Education Committee and the Standing Subcommittee on Preschool, Elementary, and Secondary Education. In addition to that, what most of you out here probably don't know is I am just now entering my 13th year as a substitute teacher in the Buncombe County school system. Now, that's been while holding a full-time job, so I don't get in there as frequently, perhaps, as some of the other substitute teachers, but I do have an experience in the classroom. Now, to answer your question, sir, I do believe that that is one of the most pressing problems that we have in the entire school system. I myself have come to the conclusion that first of all, I would be talking with them probably on a daily basis and at least a weekly basis to see if we can do some of the things that, for example, John Carroll was speaking about. Accountability. In 2000, some of you know that I also ran for the school board in 2000. I went through line item, pencil, every single item in the entire Buncombe County school budget. And when I did so, I arrived at the conclusion that we had overspent by approximately $1 million, wasteful spending that otherwise could be put in resources that are more likely to be able to bring a child along, to better instruct them, to better educate them. I could roll on for probably longer than any of you want to be here tonight, but in a nutshell, I would say that, first of all, believe it or not, kids actually need discipline. And you know what I find in the schools?
None.
Not a lot of it, number one. Number two, if a teacher is fighting the discipline problem in the school, you know what happens? Not a lot of teaching goes on. But let's address the dropout situation. One of the neatest things I ever do as a substitute teacher is when I come alongside a kid and they're struggling through a problem, and I help them work through it, and a little light bulb goes on, and you can see it go on. And I hate to say it, but in a lot of cases, and it doesn't just reflect the home life's going to be there no matter what, bad or good. But when a teacher cares enough to feel for a student and to really try to coach him along, that particular empathy will probably do more to keep them in school than any other thing I've seen. And you can tell the kids who get the attention, and you can tell the kids who are shown aside by teachers. And you know that instantly. And there are a multitude of other things I would like to say to address that. These are simply some of them. But the biggest thing probably that we could do is relieve the teachers of the burden in terms of fighting the disciplinary battle by reintroducing discipline back in our schools. Allowing them to share the time, to share the interest, to really work with these kids so they can pull along, so that they have not only the ability to learn the subject matter, but develop that same sense of self-worth and confidence in their own abilities, so they don't feel like, I can't get along, I can't do this. And I hate to say this, I'm going to add one other thing, and this will probably be totally contrary to what a lot of people think, but you know what? We're dumbing down our kids. When I go to a classroom and in the third grade they're using calculators, there's a problem. Because when you take those calculators away, they're not able to access them, they don't know how to do the work. And when you get these kids who have already dropped out of school, who are in McDonald's, who can't give you change for $2.61 on order and know that it's $2.39, the change, because their little machine has just, the electricity went out for 5 minutes during a rainstorm yesterday. We have put them in a position that guarantees their failure. So again, I can talk at length about this. Please understand I'm not trying to take your stage, and we still want to hear from you, what your concerns are. But that, in just a little bit, that's tip of the iceberg for what I want to do.
Well, it was really touched upon, and that's the accountability. Okay. I had integrity and accountability. I guess my husband and I could live together too long.
At least you're a little bit. That's good.
At least you're working together. That's harmony. That's harmony.
But it's not only the accountability in the budgets and how they're spending the money, but for each commissioner to be accountable and the meetings be more open for people to listen to what the commissioners are saying, so that it's not hiding behind because they don't want to be exposed or whatever. And that's probably one of my biggest.
How have you observed things in the past as it relates to those particular points?
I'm sorry.
How have you observed things in the past as it relates to those particular points that you're mentioning?
Well, I'm talking generally from the federal government right on down. It's it's just a thing with me. And I feel that the more communication that there is between the people locally in what the commissions are saying in their meetings, and that people have open access, or at least, to where you can't hide behind closed doors, so to speak.
Would you like to see more of these type of events where they come out to the community? Okay.
Well, and Tim, I think a perfect example of that dialogue and, learning from our citizens, and there will be sometimes that perhaps some commissioner, it doesn't matter how much dialogue they receive from their citizens, there's some, strong feeling that they have. And I think we also, commend those that have strong convictions about certain issues, that they don't change just because, the wind blows and just because they get so many phone calls or whatever. I respect that, but I think what's missing is a lack of willingness to be straight up with our citizens and say, you know what, it really doesn't matter how many people call me or how long you talk to me. I respect your view, and I see that you have a different point of view than I do, but I've made up my mind, and this is what I believe the policy, for the county should be, and would acknowledge that. But I think what's been missing in the past is they try to say, oh, we're listening to you, but that's not really true. They made up their own mind.
And we can disagree, but if you see my point and I see yours, you may not like it, but at least you can understand it.
Well,
and that's all you want.
That hearing somebody sticking to what they are thinking. If you have that position, then you're not changing it because you're talking to a different audience or to an individual that doesn't agree. That's where the integrity comes in.
Exactly.
I try to
and
think.
Having the guts to stand there and say, well, this is why I think this, and give them the reasons why.
Well, that's just like, we was talking a minute ago about district elections. I was there the night that all the other commissioners sat on their hand. We had 15 minutes to speak, and he asked for 15 more for more people to be able to speak. That's what I've been running on. It's on my card. It's in the back. Everything that y'all talked about is there. It's like a year or so back, I think everybody remembers, 4 members of the city council decided they wanted to have partisan elections. They put it in the last minute of the last day of the last hour to get it in effect. And a gentleman named Charlie Hume went and filed for a petition so that we could get a referendum. Well, I didn't know Charlie Hume from whatever. My daughter calls me, we meet Charlie Hume. I take on the ball. Charlie's got 2 young children. Gentleman lets me have an office. Takes us 2 weeks to figure out what we're doing. We got to get 5,000 signatures somehow or other. But the city council, the 4, no different than the 4 that's on the county commission, they fought, they beat, they did everything. We got, their words was just like Mr. Gant's words. You people put us in here to make decisions, and if you don't like the decisions we make, get us out. Well, it's the first referendum that's ever been. I worked at 2 o'clock in the morning getting signatures, and a lot of other people. But it was Democrats, Republicans, there's a whole bunch of us together. I call them friends, because we were on the issue. It wasn't that I wanted nonpartisan or partisan. The simple fact is I wanted the people to make the decision. And when we got the referendum, got it, fought it, got it done, it was put on the city ballot, it passed. Almost 81%. There's a gentleman in the back that worked with me on this. He worked a lot of hours. We worked every day, every night, every weekend.
81% rejected.
81% rejected partisan election. They wanted nonpartisan, so agree. Just like we're all getting ready to go vote in a general election. You can have an R and a D, but you can vote for anybody on that ballot. That's nonpartisan is what I call it. I can pick a Democrat, I can pick a Republican, but the people voted. If it had been the other way, it would have still been worth it to me because the people got to speak.
Okay, I'll patch up. Send John down the way. Yeah, because that's demeaning, and that makes me mad.
How do you feel about, because one of the pet peeves, first time I ever ran for office in 2000, I ran on open government. And I ran as a Democrat. and the party ostracized me for challenging the power structure. Because we do have a power structure in Buncombe County. If you go against it, and notice I didn't say nonpartisan, I said a power structure. If you go against it, they don't like you. But at that point in time, several of the items, now, would this address some of your concerns? I personally think we have a community TV channel called Buncombe County Channel. They have a budget about 4 times the budget of URTV, $500,000. Now, why cannot the county with a $500,000 budget televise every board meeting that occurs in Buncombe County, be it the sanitary board, be it the environmental affairs planning board? Why aren't all those board meetings televised and put on TV with an internet with a schedule when they're going to be run? Because then you could see what goes on in those board meetings, and you could trace the connections of who to who and who to who and what to what and how things be done. Would that address some of your concerns?
Yeah, sure.
And when elected, I will definitely be pushing for that, as well as public comment being televised. As a matter of fact, the day I'm sworn in, I plan to make that motion and either let it die or live on its merits, that public comment be televised, because it should be televised. And frankly, you should be able to make comment on any issue that the county commissioners are going to vote on. I think you should, as a citizen, should be allowed to make comment, and they don't do that. You make the comment before the meeting, which is not televised, or after the meeting, which is not televised. So you're speaking before, I have to answer before I even hear what you're going to do, and I think that's wrong.
Bill?
Don, you mentioned that you ran in 2000, and you were running for open government. Describe open government, what you see as the way the government should be run. What you see as open government, as you call it.
Well, I think open government should be just exactly what I just told her. I think the resources that Buncombe County has, and we have a lot of resources. We have public access TV. We have the Buncombe County channel. We have the educational channel. We've got all the things in play so that whatever we discuss, be it purchasing a piece of property, as the discussion was made in a closed-door meeting about buying a piece of property, and then it was decided not to buy that property. That should have been talked about after the meeting, because when you have a closed-door meeting, you have a closed-door meeting for 3 reasons: personnel, purchase of property, or pending lawsuit. That doesn't mean I think I'm going to sue you next year. It says pending lawsuit. Those are the only 3 legitimate reasons you can have a closed-door meeting. When you have a closed-door meeting, you're supposed to take sufficient notes so that anyone not there can read those notes and understand what went on. Folks, I tell you that I bet you everybody in North Carolina breaks that law. Buncombe County breaks it, because I know for a fact, and Nathan will have to agree to this, I know for a fact that in Buncombe County, Joe Connolly looks at those minutes to be sure that it's presentable. They don't let the clerk write the minutes. They have to look at them and proof them before they get released, to be sure they have not said something that's going to expose something, my friend, and I'm sorry. I think it's exposed. It's not trying to be integrity. It's exposed. So that's what I think open government is, Bill.
What I was really getting at there is I'm wondering about the nonprofits that the county gives money to.
Oh, that's a very simple thing.
What would you do?
I would also make a motion that any nonprofit that gets your tax dollars must open their books or they don't get the money. The town of Woodford passed it. It's the only municipality in this area that has done that. But before a citizen, before a nonprofit can get your tax dollars, I'll make that motion. And again, I'll let it die or pass on its merits. And it doesn't make any difference whether there's 4 people up there that want to do government behind closed doors, and you're going to know who the 4 are, because I will make that motion when I'm elected, that any nonprofit that applies for your tax dollars must make their books open. Now, when I say open books, that means that you're going to be able to go in there and see Excel spreadsheet, check number, amount of check, and to whom, and which line item number that's accounted to. And that's part of that accountability that we were talking about for the school system, I think, John. Yeah. We need to see that so that anybody out there that has an interest in where this nonprofit is spending their money, they can go see where it's spending it. If anybody out there has an interest in the landfill, the Buncombe County landfill is a cash cow, folks. It is not operated as an enterprise fund. It's supposed to be, but it's a cash cow. And the sheriff's departments maintenance, and all the maintenance of all the county vehicles is charged to the landfill budget. Those things get done, and that's where you're talking about integrity, ma'am. I'm sorry. Accountability. That's what open government is, Bill. It's your money. It's not my money. It's not the commissioner's money. It's our money. And if it's our money, guess what? We need to know where it's going. 100%. Totally uncut, unadulterated. And that doesn't mean we're going to like where it's going and how it gets done. But that's just fine. I believe in being open, okay?
Is there another question? Somebody else have a question? Okay, then I want to continue on. Your three points, sir?
Well, can I just follow up with what Don said? The advantage of requiring open books for people that receive county funding at a pretty high level is the fact that in tough economic times, those that don't want to fully open their books, that's one less group asking the county for money.
We just mark them off right there. Okay, go away. Don't even ask.
At the same time, though, there are legitimate functions that your county tax dollars can fund. And if it's going for a legitimate public purpose, if it's doing good in the community, then that nonprofit shouldn't be criticized. They ought to be praised by using your tax dollars in a wise and efficient way to benefit the county as a whole. So I think it's just not something to criticize nonprofits. It lets those that are doing a good job expound on that.
Actually, Nathan, those that are willing to open up their books are going to end up getting more money because those that don't ain't going to get nothing when we do that. So the ones that are doing a good job are going to get, the ones that's not.
I thought there were 950 nonprofits in Buncombe County alone. And
that don't include the churches. Certainly don't include the Baptist churches.
But, talked about accountability. It also goes down to the state issue, where, zero-based budgeting is something that we should strive to fight for, where every dollar, every department that looks for money every year has to justify every dime, dollar, whatever, what they're going to spend. Like we have, the DOT talking about putting GPSs on cars now so they can charge you for mileage, because we've been preached for years, we need to get smaller cars, get more miles to the gallon, and now the DOT is crying because they haven't got enough money. They're going to be bought over the next 10, 15 years, something like 70 billion. But they never say one thing. They never say, maybe we should, cut that waste in that department by 5%. That will give us $500 million.
As far as priorities, as what I would think are important to the candidates, personal freedom is one of the things. Personal freedom of the people of the county. I know that you had mentioned some programs like this zero taxes on vacant land as incentives rather than restrictions. Right. That if there are incentives to do something that would be good for the community rather than coming up with regulations that just tie the hands of people, and I guess that's what I mean by personal freedom. That's important to me, and fiscal responsibility, which you all have talked about, and that's why I would be voting for the candidates here. I had an odd thing happen at work. A liberal friend that I worked with, and it was talking about a letter to the editor in the newspaper where this man had a possum that come in the house and gone down the basement and died. And he was writing a letter to the editor because didn't the county have a service that he could call someone to come and take this dead possum out of his basement?
Removal service.
Well, my liberal friend was pointing this out to me. He said, and this person couldn't go down the street and offer some young man, a boy, $20 to take care of the dead possum for him. He's looking to the government to come up with a solution.
This gentleman right here, R.L. Clark, made a statement the other day that I've echoed ever since, and he said, every rule,
every regulation is a tax.
I agree with that.
So we can have a possum removal service, but it'd be a tax.
And if he's gonna pay $20, I'll give him my phone number.
Also, Thomas
And if you're in the
Jefferson
city,
said
they're gonna
that-
want it to have a tag.
Yeah, you better have a tag on it. But anyway, seriously, Mr. Clark, would you like to say something about that? I mean, it's your line, and I sure don't want to steal it, but
Ron, you're not stealing it, but what people don't understand, and I'll just paraphrase Thomas Jefferson, a government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take everything you have. It's just that simple. And I spent 2 terms in the North Carolina State Senate, and not one time did I ever vote for one tax increase. In fact, I was cleaning out some things today, and I just located a 1995 edition of the Madison County paper where Republicans were too shy of a majority in the state Senate that controlled the North Carolina House. And that session of the General Assembly, there was close to $1 billion of tax cuts enacted. The General Assembly prior to that, where Democrats controlled everything, they raised taxes $1 billion. So that just shows what happens when you've got different philosophies at the helm. And again, remember, every rule, every regulation is a tax. You don't tax the big oil company. You don't tax the big corporation. That is passed on right down to the people in this room that drive up to the gas pump. We holler about the high cost of gasoline. Do you have any idea, when you drive up to the gas pump, how much of that $4 that you pay goes for taxes? Anybody want to hazard a guess?
29.5 cents to state, 18.5 cents to the federal.
Wrong.
What?
Gasoline is taxed from the wellhead all the way through the process. Government ends up with 54 cents out of each dollar that you spend for your gasoline. And with that, I'll sit down.
Is my vote really counting?
I hope so.
Dave Gant went to the State House Representative when we had the no zoning vote and had a non-referendum to work, it would not count. We know that for a fact. Dave Gant did that to us, the senior citizens, the old people, the young people, every vote, everyone that voted. It was a non-binding vote, which it should have been. Our tax dollars paid to have that vote. I asked Dave Gant 3 times within the span of 2 months what we owed on the school bonds. He didn't know he wasn't a school person, but they give millions of dollars to the schools. And him wanting to be the chairperson, he should know. The 4th time I asked the question was at AV Tech, or UNC AV Tech. And within 48 hours, Wanda Green had my answer to me. When I asked David Gant over the span of 2 or 3 months how much we owed on the school bond, and we're paying for 2 or 3. He didn't know he wasn't a school person. If he is the chairperson or on the board of any board, he should know how much of our tax dollars goes to that. If you're a senior citizen, you shouldn't have to pay for the schools. These new businesses going in, these new houses, so much of that should be going to the schools, not the older people that are in the community paying their taxes all the time. They go and try to get it reduced. They make $13 too much to get their taxes reduced. And they're retired. That's not right.
$13 over the limit, we're talking about.
Oh, the limit.
That's what happens when you have a limit like that, that's not fair.
Well, and RL was, Senator Clark was talking about taxes. That's the unfairness of property taxes, because at least at the federal level, they can say, well, we're just going to tax the rich folks, the people that are making over a certain amount of money. But at the county property taxes, everybody that owns a car, that owns a home, no matter, you know, expensive or modest, everyone pays county property taxes. So, you know, when the county raises taxes, we raise taxes on everybody. It's just not the people making over X thousands of dollars. So, you know, that's the tough thing about the county
Well,
taxes.
there again, even the people who don't own property, their landlord raises their rent to accommodate how much you charge for tax. So,
I think what's critical is the fact, though, you can't just tax the rich people from a property tax standpoint. I mean, the state can come out and they say, if you make over $50,000 on your state income tax, your tax rate will be this. Or the federal government can say, if you make over, you know, $100,000, your tax rate will be this. But the county, under state law, we can't do that. You know, so unless you have some type of program to freeze the value, some type of homestead exemption like they have in Florida, and that's got to be a state law change. That's something Paul might want to touch base on that.
Yeah, at the moment, particularly in North Carolina, North Carolina is one of the few states that basically controls everything from the legislature. Counties don't really have all that much power. And Don tells a good story about how that happened after the Great Depression, which was illuminating for me, because I've only been here 10 years, but sometimes I still think I'm in a depression.
when he says here, he means here, this side of the pond.
But yeah, you can do a Homestead Act from the legislator's point of view, where you could give relief to the people. And you know, property tax on cars, to me, is a double taxation anyway. I don't even know if it's constitutional. And that would be something I'd like to get rid of. In Georgia, they got rid of property tax on cars, and I'm very interested in looking on that. They're also trying to get rid of property tax on your home. So that's another very interesting thing that I'd be interested in. But when you have the power structure, as Don says, that has been in power for 140 years, their arrogance is, we can do whatever we like, and there's nothing you can do about it. And me as a candidate, I'm not going down to be a part of the government. I'm going down to be the CEO of the people that sent me down there to do the people's business, and that's what I'm going down to.
I'll tell you, the key to my voting for any of you people is the first county commission meeting. I want you to abolish this 3 minutes nonsense. Because I've had to listen to politicians for more than 3 minutes. Okay? John, I love you. I bought my first house this man. But it just irritates me to death that they just cut our freedom of speech. You talk about freedom. I mean, if we get it out with Eric in the beginning, maybe we can work it out. And after all these meetings, after a while, maybe the meetings will be shorter. Because there's just this pent-up anger. And, you know, you can't shut people up. We're not stupid down here. We know how much. You talk about taxes. King George III was only going to take 2 weeks out of our hide every year. What is the federal government taking? Okay? I mean, who's stupid here? We are, for putting up with this. And the thing is, I know taxes. I'm an accountant. I pay my taxes. They reduced the capital gains tax to 5%. And the economy took off because the coffers, more money was pouring into the coffers than they had in years. The problem is, this one-time expenditures of money coming in, they squander it on these programs, that they fund these programs long-term, and they don't think about the bad years, the 7 years. We're supposed to provide surplus for these great rainy days, and we're not doing that. These politicians aren't doing that. I think with these group of people up here, we've got a better shot of achieving that than the current group we have now. Go ahead.
Your 3 minutes thing,
Go for it.
you know, 3 minutes might be enough for me to go talk to these people if I felt like I could trust them. You know, the people that are in there right now, city or county, because I live in the city, and trust me, you don't want to do that. You walk in and you know that you're beating your head on the wall when you talk to these people. And so, you know, That's why I said, you don't have to agree with me, but you do have to give me a decent reason why you don't.
But just a story on the 3 minutes. The first time I went to a commissioner meeting, it had been a long time. I guess it was, Pat was probably there in 1984, was our last time I'd been there, and that was when the room was a lot smaller, and they basically met at a folding table. I went up there, and Pat was probably at that meeting. This was in 98 or I guess it's 98, it's 10 years. Time flies when you're having fun. But former Chairman Sobel, they did sort of have a 3-minute limit. But I spoke, I think, like 10 minutes, and he let me continue on. And so, you know, I probably didn't make a lot of sense, as Ron says. Talk to him.
It takes him 3 minutes to tell you his name.
Well, he probably recognized that. But you know, that really goes back to, you know why he could give me 10 minutes? Because the other commissioners, he had the leverage on that board to say, here's what we're going to do. And they would listen to Sobel. And, you know, quite frankly, you know, I love everybody, and I don't care what your politics, you know, are, you know, that's fine. But when you're really talking about in a political environment, you know, if it's 3 minutes, if I don't cut you off, you're going to say, hey, you know, sit him down.
Let me just, we're starting to come to the end, and I want to give all our candidates an opportunity to make some final comments. For those of you that are here, we will be in West Asheville tomorrow, so we'll be doing this, and then after the convention, we'll actually be doing a couple more, and then we'll start another series of community cookouts as we start getting closer to the final election day. So, with you, Ron, why don't you give us 1 minute?
November the 5th, this does not end. That's just the beginning.
I'd like to also echo Ron's sentiment in saying that we appreciate you coming out, because without input from you folks, we really don't know all the issues, and your comments actually help us more than you know. So we do appreciate them, and it's things, of course, that we can use once we become elected, and it's also things help us know what the issues are in the campaign. I think also that we as a people, meaning Democrats, Republicans, Independents, all of us, we have a responsibility to make this county the best place we can possibly live. And the only way we can do that is to have input.
I'd like to thank everybody for being here and for listening to me, the Irishman. Some people can't understand me. Me and Nathan are probably different than the other 4 candidates, because they're running for the whole of Buncombe County against numerous commissioners. Nathan is running against one person and I'm running against one person. So our races are different. They have 4 years, I'll only have 2 years. So I'll probably be here while they're still just getting used to what they're doing. But it was very good for me to listen to what people wanted to talk about, rather than us talking to you what we wanted to talk about. And I think it's allowed us to be more humble and appreciative, and gave us a little bit of extra insight on how to approach what we need to do, and I can't keep that.
Well, I just appreciate everybody coming out, and this is especially close to my heart because this is in Fairview, where I grew up, went to school, and my family lives. So there's so many good people in this community. I know a lot of, you know, one of the challenges as the county grows and changes, you know, used to we knew all our neighbors, and now we don't know a lot of the folks that live here near to the extent how we used to. And certainly that's a change, but I really appreciate y'all allowing me to serve on the Board of Commissioners. And no matter how the election turns out, I want to really thank y'all for giving me that opportunity.
Well, first I want to thank the Buncombe County GOP. They put me back in the race. I ran because I felt like the county needed somebody, because I couldn't run for the city, but I wanted to run for the county. Young gentleman at Goon Bay the other day looked at me and he says, Mr. Fryer, he says, why are you running? I said, well, I'm running for all the people of Buncombe County. I got a list of things. He said, well, are you just, if you get in, are you going to listen? I said, yes, I'm going to listen. He said, well, the issue's on your card here. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I promise you one thing. If I get the people in with me, there's 4 wonderful men up here, or 5, excuse me, that would be on the council, and 1 for 115 district. If I can't get half of what I got on this card through, I won't run again, period. Because I want to work for you, and if you can't accomplish something, there's no need to be there. And, you know, we're all looking for your vote. I definitely want to win. I'm not in it for the fun of it. So I have cards in the back that tells the issues I have. So thank you.
Well, I'm in it for the fight, and I love a good fight. And I think this lady here tonight sat here and described something that I have been personally talking about for a long time. How much money could we make in Buncombe County if we had small family farms that were putting up green beans, having that leather britches hanging on our porch, milking a cow, slopping a pig, killing a pig, canning sausage, doing the things we used to do to survive? Folks, we could have people out of Atlanta coming in here and paying $5,000, $6,000 a week to go out and walk around a cow in here, Nathan. Because everybody wants to get back to nature. And we're sitting around wondering, what can we do to make money? It's her idea. When you talk to people, that's what you get. They have good ideas that will work. And frankly, I don't care about Raleigh. That's why Paul said he's worried about me. Because I believe that if 5 commissioners in Buncombe County say, we're going to try this new idea that gives people more freedom and reduces taxes, and it don't fit your bill, but we're going to do it anyway. I think if 5 commissioners go down there and get the unity in Raleigh, and I can tell you, it's very easy to create a stir in Raleigh. I did last Saturday. I've done it before. But if 5 commissioners go down there in unity and say, we're going to try this in North Carolina, that's how, John, we lead. That's how Buncombe County sets the pace. That's how Buncombe County shows that you can build on the side of the mountain. And it's going to take a different leadership. It's going to take a different idea. And it's not going to have to be none of this, oh, we're going to be all right. We're going to get the job done. And when elected, there's a piece of paper back there that I want you to take home with you tonight. Every one of them. I want you to read it. If you'll commit to me, I'll commit to you, and I'll sign a contract with you. And basically it says that after I'm elected, you will hold me responsible for what I told you and what I said on that piece of paper. And that's what I'm willing to do. And I thank you very much for being here, because it is a pleasure to hear your ideas, because that's why I asked the question what your 3 priorities are. Because your priorities can become their priorities, and should.
Previously served Fairview when I was in the state senate. Just come to the top of the mountain above Reynolds High School now. But anytime you can say a good word for me, I have a voting record, and I voted precisely the same way that I presented my platform when I first ran for office in 1994. And if I'm elected again this year, I will do the same thing. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, on behalf of the Buncombe County Republican Party, we thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us this evening.
Don't forget the signs.
Oh, yeah.
And literature.
I'm not done yet.
You know, don't forget to take some signs and literature.
Thank you for being here. As you've heard the candidate say, we listen, we learn. They were taking down notes. They were actually taking down notes. In reference to things that you were saying, and we're doing this because we do want to hear from you. And as Don said, he learned a whole lot just from the words that you were saying in reference to the farm and how people do want to get back to nature. You know, we got this green thing going on in our world now, so that's very important. The other thing I would ask you to do is don't feel like this is the only thing that you can do for our candidates. We'd be more than glad to have meet and greets in your particular neighborhoods if you want to invite some of your friends over, regardless of what their party affiliation is, to come. If you want to have them over at the senior care center, if you want to have them at a community center, wherever the case may be, these candidates are looking for an opportunity to come and speak and touch those individuals, because at the end of the day, this really is a grassroots effort. We do have signs in the back. Please pick up the literature, take as many as you like. If you want to hand them out to other people, or if you want to talk to them one-on-one, feel free to do that. But again, on behalf of the Buncombe County Republican Party, we thank you, we appreciate you. Positive change starts at the local level. Thank you very much, and have a safe one.
alone.